Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to take a deep dive into Hellgates and briefly go over some of the issues that Hellgates have, but more importantly go over some suggestions on possible solutions to make Hellgates more alive and also make it more accessible to a wider audience of players. The first and most important thing in my opinion is making Hellgates more accessible to everyone. 5v5 and 10v10 Hellgates are just really difficult to get into. 2v2s are fine because it's easy to just find one player and then you go in and play. There's generally always people inside, and so the infamy system works basically as intended. But in 5v5 and 10v10 Hellgates, where sometimes there's either 0 teams or just 2 really strong teams inside, you can't do the same thing as in 2v2s because you're either going to get PvE or you will face against an experienced team. So if you're a new team and you're trying to learn, you're stuck. Okay, but there's the non-lethal Hellgates, right? Why not go there? So there's a few issues with the non-lethal Hellgates. First of all, there's 0 risk and there's also 0 reward. The fame and loot is basically non-existent, which is an issue, and since it's 0 risk, you'll have people go into them with the wackiest builds and comps you've ever seen in your life, and so the practice is also non-existent as well. Another reason for that as well is, while we're on the topic of non-lethal Hellgates, one change that I've suggested for a few months now is to disable Reawaken in Hellgates. This would make non-lethals actually playable, since sometimes people just go Reawaken, and also you should increase the timer from 3 minutes when you get down. It's impossible to play non-lethals because you can just literally run around the map for 3 minutes until your last guy gets up. Or like sometimes people die slowly, and then again, you know, by the time you kill like 2 more people, the other guy gets up, and I just think it's like bad for practice purposes. But again, I think you should disable Reawaken, since there already is a similar mechanic. We have a healing reduced debuff because of demonic aura or whatever it's called. You can just do the same thing, and then you also have some roleplay friendly reason, like the demonic powers in this realm have weakened your holy powers, or you know, some shit like that. So where am I going with this? You guys might remember a long time ago in old school 5v5 Hellgates, before the rework, they didn't even have a non-lethal category. The point is, it doesn't have to be non-lethal to be accessible for newer players, because a lot of people played old 5v5 Hellgates. My suggestion is as following. Add a Stalker and Slayer difficulty to Hellgates. We already have a very similar system like this in Corrupteds. Now the Hunter difficulty is just for brand new players who are trying to learn how to play the game, how to press their buttons, and again you graduate from Hunter difficulty reasonably quickly, and then you have the Stalker difficulty, which would have a minimum base IP of like 800 or something, 900, just so you can enter with flat 4 for 1 gear basically, and then you can make a 90% item power cap on it. Obviously make the rewards reasonable, and boom, there you go. Now we have an avenue and a place with some risk, because again, I think you need some risk for it to be somewhat competitive so you can learn the content. Non-lethals at the moment is like going to Hunter Corrupted dungeons. The jump in difficulty from non-lethal to lethal Hellgates at the moment is too big in my opinion. Now the first thing that comes to mind is, wait, won't this just split their player base even more? But I don't think that's quite true. There's many players who go into 10v10s just to get demolished by a top team, and then yeah, we just lost like 8 million in total between 10 people and we couldn't do anything. It wasn't fair, it wasn't fun. Losing like this isn't fun for the vast majority of people playing the game. You need incremental difficulty. Now, some people are masochists and wouldn't mind, let's say, playing League of Legends, like you're bronze rank and you're trying to learn the game, and then you're queuing up against Faker 50 games straight. And also imagine every time you lose $100. Now, would that be a good way to learn the game? I don't think so. Or you can go into the non-lethal 10v10 equivalent of this analogy, and you're playing League against a team full of toddlers. Which, if you're playing solo queue, that might actually be your experience, but that's your teammates instead. But either way, the point is, you're getting 0 practice if you're playing non-lethals. I think this could be a very fun content that many people could partake in, 10v10 Hellgates, but people are just demotivated because they'll go inside and, oh, it's Quazars and 8-4 IP abusing, and then they get one shot, and yeah, we're never playing that content again. So again, you can leave the Slayer difficulty of Hellgates for the sweaty teams, and you can introduce this avenue which wouldn't take players away from the Slayer difficulty since they're already playing that, and long-term introduce teams who can slowly climb and slowly improve, And until they feel confident, then they can play Slayer. Otherwise, they can stay Stalker. I think this makes perfect sense now. Obviously, I understand the issue with 5v5 and 10v10 Hellgates is that, they're difficult to mass for. You need to find 4 or 9 other people. While finding a single person for 2v2s is obviously way easier. You don't even need Discord for that. You just go to Carlian Market and you type looking for 2v2 healer or looking for 2v2 DPS, for example. So my suggestion is you keep the non-lethal Hellgates as they are, and you can just rename them to Hunter difficulty. And then you add a lethal Stalker difficulty to Hellgates, and you make it 800 or 900 minimum base IP, like whichever lets you enter in 4-1 gear, basically. And then you keep the current lethal Hellgates that we have and rename them to Slayer. You could even raise the minimum base IP if you want. You can keep it the same. I think you can make the scaling the same as in Corrupteds, make it 50%. I think that would be a good idea. You make it basically almost the same as the Corrupted system. Again, the details here could be changed, whether it's 800 or 900 base IP. Like, we can adjust those easily. If we see people aren't playing, we can lower or increase them. The thing is, SBI has done this before. They have increased it, or actually they have lowered it. In the case of 10v10s before, I'm pretty sure the base item power minimum was 11 or 1200 even before, and they've lowered it now. It's only 1000. So they can always adjust it if we notice it's too low or too high. So that's the main suggestion and overhaul of Hellgates. I think this is a good idea, and in the long run this will increase the Hellgate population and get more people into the content. If anything, I think I might suffer for it temporarily, as maybe there will be less teams playing Slayer, but I think for the health of the game, this is probably a good idea. Again, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Alright, so we still have more changes and more stuff I wanted to suggest. Let's go over a few minor bugs and quality of life improvement changes. So one thing is, if you get downed in PvE and you get invaded, I think you should get reawakened instantly. It's annoying if someone invades you and they're like right next to you while you're knocked down. I think it's just silly. Why is that a thing? Also, another thing is when the mobs disappear, when you get invaded, the bats sometimes explode and one-shot like whoever's next to them. So I think that one's just silly. And make sure you actually get all your cooldowns up again. When you get invaded in Corrupteds, there's a small wind-up animation and sound effect, and then you get invaded and then your cooldowns get reset. I think you should do something similar for Hellgates. It's really frustrating when you get invaded. Then you press Judy Armor, for example, which is a long cooldown, right? As you get invaded, and now you have to wait 45 seconds. Or like any Morgana cape or Demon cape, whatever, right? This already exists. You would have the time to react and leash mobs, for example, as well. So that's another bonus. Again, I don't see a reason why they can't add it. There's already a thing there in the game already for Corrupteds. So yeah. Another thing which is especially useful if you're a healer or support is to fix the party bug. Whenever you zone into Hellgates, the party list shuffles around and the party leader is decided by who clicks the gate first. Also, if I remember correctly, in the current patch, you can't even give party lead to someone. And especially not if the party leader dies, then you can't mark stuff. And obviously for certain teams and for certain comps, which rely on marking people, especially in 10v10s, it's more useful. This can be frustrating and you can disturb the gameplay. I think this is just a general quality of life change. I don't see a reason why you shouldn't fix it. And next major topic is maps. I think some of the maps require changes. Some maps are frustrating based on which Hellgate type you're playing. The easiest example is Courtyard. There is a big pile of shit down right in the middle of the map, and if you're playing, for example, Curse, DPS, and 2v2s, and it drags out until lava, the enemy can literally run around and keep you out of line of sight. In general, every end circle area should be a somewhat open area and not have any pillars or terrain. Like this small rock on the Tribunal map makes your powerful demonic staff unable to work if the enemy stands behind it. Pretty silly. But again, some specific map changes I would suggest. For the Boneyard, honestly, it could stay as is. I think though you should remove this small rock in the middle on the left. You could also potentially add 2 sections up these small hills so there's more than one entrance there. I think it could add some interesting pathfinding and kiting or chasing possibilities. For the Tribunal, as I said, remove the small rock in the middle and I think it's fine. For the Citadel map, you have 3 small rocks and 1 big rock, but more importantly, especially for 5v5 and 10v10 Hellgates, the only entrances into the end circle are through incredibly tight staircases or going through north, which again, north angle is incredibly shit. and you basically can't see anything. In my opinion, these need to be wider. The same reason on Traverse, they made the whole pathway to mid wider. I think the same reasoning applies here. It's a rare map, admittedly. It's a boss map, but I think you could still change it, make those chokes wider. Courtyard is the map that has the biggest problem when it comes to line of sight. Honestly, the other maps are probably fine. The small rocks and everything so far doesn't need changing, but this big rock right down the center of the end circle needs to be removed, in my opinion. For Traverse, personally, I think the small chokes leading to the south pocket in the middle should be slightly wider. Otherwise, I think it's okay as is. For the 4 bridges, though, I think this map looks really nice visually, aesthetically, but competitively, it's a slight problem because you have the middle area, which is a very open area. And by the way, there should be probably a staircase leading northeast here as well, but that might just be me being autistic. But so again, on one hand, you have these long and very tight chokes, and on the other hand, you have a super open area where you can't really kite anywhere if lava covers the bridges. So here, I think there's no simple fixes that still retain the 4 bridges idea or aesthetic. So I just think you either scrap the idea of this map, you make the bridges way wider, or rework mid somehow, or like add an extra access point in the middle of every bridge connecting to mid. Not sure really personally, like any team who doesn't want to play around the chokes can very easily kite around them until lava engulfs the bridges to the point where you're forced to fight in the open area. If you try to flank, the rest of your team will be very, very far away, so you're gonna die by the time they catch up, so that doesn't really work. So again, this map is just a little tricky, competitively at least in my opinion. On the pit, you have a similar problem to how in Courtyard at the end circle you have big rocks. Here you have these 2 big rocks here. I think you could remove them or make them further apart from each other. But yeah, otherwise again, you have the line of sight issue. So those are probably the biggest things for me that require any changes. Anything else would just be cherry on top pretty much, but I think it is still worth mentioning. And as I mentioned earlier, make sure that resetting cooldowns happens slightly after you get notified that you're getting invaded. Also, instantly revive anyone who's down when you get invaded if you go down to mobs. But also, I think disabling Reawaken in Hellgates, as I mentioned earlier. This is especially frustrating in non-lethals, but also to stop lava comps. And let's be honest, nobody likes lava comps. Not even the people who play lava comps, I think. In order to prevent this, I suggest making the lava not close all the way, but leave a tiny gap without lava in the very center of the map that lava never reaches. So like a 3-meter circle or something. But also on top of that, obviously, there are comps that can go infinite in lava, so you don't want to get held hostage. If you guys remember in the old Hellgates, there was a max timer before you got kicked out. I think it was like 30 minutes or something, but I'm not sure. So I think something similar here could be added just to make sure you, like, basically you can't play lava comps. I think everyone will agree with me. Lava comps are horrible for the game, whether you're playing it or you're playing against it, or if you're like streaming and someone just wants to stream snipe you. Lava comps just shouldn't exist. Basically, don't make lava close all the way, but leave a tiny circle without lava at the end. But then also add a max timer of like 15 minutes. I think that's reasonable. Another thing is to be able to remove or hide this pop-up that says defeat your opponents. Like, just please let us hide it. It just clutters the screen with unnecessary things. Like, I know my goal is to defeat the opponents and then loot the chests. Like, yes, I am aware. Another quality of life change would be the debuffs under your name on the top left. Let's be honest, this is not Hellgate specific, but having too many effects at the same time makes it so you can't see half of them. And this is pretty annoying. I think you could easily extend this to be like 3 or 4 rows without issues. Another thing that would be nice is making it slightly easier to tell if you're in combat or not. This is more of a 2v2 thing, but there are people who just want to run at you and keep you in combat, and knowing if you're in combat or not would be very useful, I think. You can make a visual or audio indicator. I think there already is something similar, but you can make it more obvious or add it to settings. You know, like when you're about to get out of combat. Minor change, but it could be useful. I think also for the Hellgate Frenzy event, you could swap the bonus around. So at the moment you get 10% loot and 15% fame bonus. Let's be honest, most people who do gates would rather have it the other way around. So 15% loot and 10% fame I think would be nice. Or just make it 15% both, like you can barely notice the difference in my opinion. So a slight increase would be nice, but yeah, again, just cherry on top. Alright, but that would be it for this video. Again, some of these things are just my opinion, but I think a lot of the suggestions here would be overall great for the majority of the player base, especially the bug fixes and quality of life changes. I think everyone will agree. Most of them are pretty useful. Again, let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more content, and I hope you have a good one.